story about what I did on this weekend. I went to a wedding on Friday. Okay, it was a really great wedding. It was at the Central Coast. I really chilled out on the beach, went to the Surf Lifesaving Club, and pretty much we had a great time eating and dancing. Now listen, I'm not much of a dancer, believe it or not. I do that thing. I'm pretty much just doing security for my wife, who is a fabulous dancer. Okay, and just, I'm not saying security for her, I'm saying from her to protect others as she waves her arms around, bumps things off. She looks like one of those, the car yard things that go up and down like that? That's her dancing. Magnificent. Anyway, the night drew to a close. We're not drinkers, so we're out on the balcony. It's around 11, having a couple of waters, and a guy plonks himself down at our table. Boom. And it's very, very clear two things. Firstly, he is drunk. I mean, drunk. He is absolutely intoxicated. Secondly, he's also a bit of a jerk. Okay, he's abrasive and aggressive, and he's a little bit odd towards us, and things are a bit strange. After a few minutes, his girlfriend comes over, and his girlfriend knows my wife, and his girlfriend tries to calm the situation and says, "Oh, this is Sammy. She's got 2 young boys." And then the guy does something. He goes, "Oh," and he reaches his hand out and rubs my wife's face and hair. Now, 2 things immediately spring to mind. I'm sure you can understand these. Firstly, that's my wife. You don't touch my wife. You do not touch my wife. Secondly, bro, I had to sit there for 45 minutes while she did her hair earlier this morning. Are you seriously going to do that to me right now? What is wrong with you? Anyway, so I said to him, in a slightly aggressive tone, I said to him, "Don't touch my wife." And he goes, "What?" And I go, "Don't touch my wife." And his response is to mimic and mock my voice. "Don't touch my wife." And then he does something which sets off inside of me an old friend of mine. He reaches his hand out to do it again. And it's like slow motion for me. I'm just like, "Oh, no." Thankfully, his missus slaps his hand down and drags him off. But the old friend which he had awoken inside of me stays awake and took a while to calm down. Let me introduce you to my old friend. Some of you might be familiar with him or her. Some of you might be intimately familiar with him or her. I'm talking about anger. My brothers and sisters, I've got a confession for you this morning. I have an anger problem. In fact, I've got 2 problems with anger. First, I've struggled with anger my whole life, particularly before I was a Christian. And listen, no one will ever stand up here and pretend to be perfect. I'm certainly far from perfect. I've really improved with my anger. God's really changing me and transforming me. But before I was a Christian, let me tell you, I used to carry anger in a bag, a constant companion for me. And I'd bring them out from time to time, nearly every day. It'd be verbal, sometimes physical, or if not, and maybe you're more familiar with this type of anger, it'd just stay in here and I would burn and simmer and be bitter. I could hold a grudge for years and years. The second problem I have with anger, though, is an interesting one. I hate anger. I don't like it. I don't like the feeling. I don't like the consequence of it. I really hate it when other people are angry at me as well. When was the last time you were angry? Do you remember what it was about? I wonder if you regret it, or I wonder if you're actually proud of it. I think that regardless of a background, black or white, rich or poor, it does not matter where you come from. Anger is a huge problem in our society. And in some ways, we should understand that because society actually glamorizes anger. If you think of all the heroes in the movies and the films and the music, all the heroes in the sporting field or whatever, all the people, male or female, it doesn't have to be a macho person or anything, all the people who stand up for themselves, who stand up to injustice, who don't get pushed over. They're the people. And because of that, the way they react is with anger. And so we're led to think, well, anger is the right way we should react towards when people are treating us badly. And then we subsequently think, I don't know if you know this or not, but we subsequently think the opposite of anger is weakness, spinelessness, being gutless, being walked all over. I think that's the way it is in our society. And so every time someone does something which personally affronts us or makes us think, you don't think of me as I deserve to be thought of, we respond with anger. And yet the truth is, I've never met one person who says, man, I just don't get angry enough. I wish I had more anger in my life. Oh, it's something I really seek for. I think all of us, and if you don't, come, let's talk about it afterwards, calmly. All of us have the feeling, the inclination that there must be a better way to live. Amen? There must be a better life. So what does God say? Well, God's word speaks directly to this topic. And what God says is revolutionary. I'm saying countercultural, radical, always has been. God says the opposite of anger is not weakness. The opposite of anger is gentleness. And let's think about that word for a second, because even that word, for a lot of us, are like, gentle? I'm not gentle. Let's understand what the word, that's the guys. I'm assuming the girls are going to go, I don't know what noise you make. The guys, opposite of anger is gentleness. The definition of anger, check this out. If you're a writer, write this down. The biblical definition of gentleness is strength under control. Patience. Love. But a powerful love. Power clothed with restraint. And regardless of your background today, you might be a Christian, you might not be sure where you stand, you might know I'm not a Christian. Regardless of what you think, let me tell you a fact. We have no better place to see gentleness in action than the life of Jesus of Nazareth. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to look at a story, a true story of an incident, a very well-known incident in Jesus' life. I'm going to make a couple of promises to you. I promise you that what we will see here will change how you think about gentleness. And I also promise you that if you listen today with your heart open, it will not just change your life regarding how you act, it'll change your life regarding who you are before God. Why don't I quickly pray and we'll look at this Bible passage together. Father, Lord, thank you so much for your Son, Jesus Christ. Lord, that he lived on this earth. We can read about it. We can understand who he is. Father, speak to our hearts today and open them so we are changed. I pray this in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, the story we're going to read, I'm going to continue the wedding theme here for a bit. The story we're going to read is like a wedding cake, except it tastes good. Wedding cakes never taste good, unless you're a cook, in which case they taste delicious. Wedding cakes, the old school wedding cakes have 3 tiers. You know what I mean? The 3 separate tiers. And this story is a little bit like that. It's actually got 3 layers. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a slice of each layer. We're going to look at it one level, then we're going to go a little bit deeper, then we're going to go a little bit deeper. All of the same story, all appreciating the different layers of this story and then actually being able to understand all of it together. So let's go to verse 28 and see where this story kicks off. The story kicks off with Jesus finishing up his 3 years of ministry. Okay, and his 3 years of ministry has resulted in really 2 things, a lot of things, but 2 ones I'm going to talk about. Firstly, he's very popular. He's got thousands and thousands of followers. And secondly, he's hated by religious rulers. The religious rulers all live in Jerusalem. So we see here, after Jesus had finished his teaching, he went on ahead, going up to Jerusalem. That statement actually makes no sense, because Jesus should be running away from Jerusalem. The Jesus-hating movement, the Israel's most wanted crowd, are there. And yet we see here Jesus, imagine the picture right now, striding ahead of his crew, thousands of people, leading them onwards towards Jerusalem. And if you think that's strange, and you should, it gets a little bit stranger later on. Verse 29 to 34 paints this picture that they stop just short of Jerusalem. Jesus gets his disciples together, picks 2 of them and says, "Oi, I want you to go to this village. There's going to be a donkey there. I want you to untie the donkey, say the secret password, the Lord needs it, get the donkey, bring it back." His disciples are like, "Oh, okay," walk off, and boom, what do you know? There's a donkey. They get it, say the password, the Lord needs it. They get it, they bring it back, and then Jesus gets on top of the donkey. Now, understand this picture. No one else has got any donkeys. There's just Jesus. Jesus has got thousands of followers. So here's a picture of Jesus about to enter Jerusalem, leading a crowd, all on foot, him on the donkey. This isn't exactly him slipping in unnoticed, is it? It's not exactly him sort of going, oh, I'm just going to go to Jerusalem for some shopping, better phone coverage, all this sort of stuff. Oh, he's not doing that. Jesus is making an entrance. But as we continue the passage, we see that's even an understatement. Look at verse 36 to 40. He enters the final part of his journey. And one of my favourite words happens here. I love the word berserk. Okay, he goes berserk. He doesn't. The crowd go berserk at Jesus coming in on this donkey. They're shouting out his miracles to each other. They're shouting out the great things that he's done. The crowd who are already there, there's a time of pilgrimage called the Passover, so there would have been thousands of people there. They start cheering and clapping and crying out praises, not just to Jesus, but to God. Verse 38, blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest. The religious rulers, they hate this, don't they? So like, Jesus, shut these people up. And he goes, mate, if I shut them up, even the rocks will party. This is inevitable. We can't stop this. So it's obvious there from the very beginning, just a surface level reading, that this is no ordinary man. This is no ordinary journey. This is an extraordinary man on an extraordinary journey. But the question is, why? What is it about this story that makes it so extraordinary? So let's finish off that first bit of cake. Tasted good. And now let's cut the second layer, rethink about the story from a different angle. Have another bite of the next layer of this cake. Now to understand this layer, you've got to understand that Jesus is Jewish. The crowd there is Jewish. And the Jewish people at the time were under Roman occupation. That's kind of like the Americans coming here, overthrowing our government and giving us their own police force. Okay? That's what Roman occupation was like. Now you think that is pretty terrible, but the Jewish people were used to it. They'd had thousands of years of occupation from foreign armies. Thousands of it. Murder, massacre, rape, pillaging, exile. They were picked up and put in a whole different country. Okay? The Jewish people were continually attacked. And so they were very used to being down in the dumps. Down in mayhem, down in despair. Now you might say, well, thank you very much, Dave, for the history lesson. I appreciate that. How in any way does this affect what we're talking about? Well, let me explain. You see, while they were down in the dumps in the thousands of years, in the Old Testament of the Bible, while they were down in the dumps, God makes them a series of promises. You know what he says to them? He says, relief will come. More than relief, not temporary relief, eternal victory will come. Salvation will come. And this salvation will not come in the form of a foreign army or like a dragon from the sky. This victory will come in the form of a man. And not an ordinary man, a king. The Messiah. The Christ. Those words mean the chosen one, the promised one. The Old Testament is just littered with these references. He is coming. He is coming. He is coming. Let me show you what I'm talking about. There's a book of the Bible called Zechariah. Zechariah is a prophet. A prophet's someone who got a message from God and told other people. And he writes in the Bible around 500 years before Jesus. So he's got his own book, the second last book of the Bible, of the Old Testament, of the Old Testament. You've got Zechariah, the book of Zechariah. Now let me read to you what Zechariah wrote 500 years before Jesus. It'll be on the screen. Check this out. Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9. Rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. Whew. That's a biblical mic drop moment. Do you understand what's happening here? Jesus is not doing any of this stuff accidentally. He's not like, hey, I couldn't get a horse, so I got a donkey. The chariot was out of use, so I got a donkey. All of this is intentional. Jesus is not just planning a trip, a day trip to Jerusalem as a tradie from Timbuktu going in. He's not just a carpenter from Nazareth. Jesus is planning his coronation. That's where he becomes king. He's crowning. This is the entry of a king from heaven. Now listen, let's talk about weddings. I was going to say I love weddings. I'm partial, whatever. Free food, it's pretty good. At this wedding on Friday night that we went to, it's like every wedding, and all of you can relate to this, I'm sure. We have the ceremony, very nice, pretty good. We got the reception, wonderful. Free food, my love language, love it. But you got that period in between. Oh, there's no man's land of time. We went to this venue, this little sort of venue in between. And we were there for 2 hours. And that's 2 hours of chit-chat. Oh. 2 hours of hors d'oeuvres. Oh. 2 hours of standing up. And everyone in that room is feeling the exact same. As those photographers, I don't know what they're doing for that many hours, okay? But they're gone. What are we doing? What's everyone in that room doing? We're waiting. We're awaiting the arrival of the bride and the groom. And so finally we get the word, oi, go over to the reception venue, it's just next door. They're coming, they're going to come. So we actually get there and we're standing there and then, boom, doors come open. Woo! The bride and groom, they run in, everyone goes berserk. Finally, I can sit down. Finally, I don't have to stand here talking to this person I've never met before. Finally, I can eat. Are you beginning to understand and grasp the concept, the picture, if you will, of these Jewish people under thousands and thousands of years of oppression as this man enters Jerusalem on this donkey? Do you understand why this is the biggest party they've ever seen? This man comes forward and his disciples cry out the miracles that he's done. He raised Lazarus from the dead. There's Lazarus. He healed the blind man. Look at him, he's there. He transformed the life of Zacchaeus. Here he is, this little guy. Just talk to him. He's amazing. Not only that, they start crying to each other, praise to the Lord, praise to the Lord. The King is here. The King is here. He's arrived. And 6 days later, he was dead. Oh, my friends, what happened? What happened here to turn this scene into one of party and delight, where even the rocks are crying out in delight, to one of death? Well, that's where we come to the bottom layer of this cake, and this layer's got a sour aftertaste. And I've got some shocking news about this layer. It's all about you. And it's all about me. So we've looked at Jesus entering now. We've looked at the Jewish background. Now let's just think for a second about this crowd. Now, they estimate that during the time of Passover at around this time, around 250,000 people streamed into Jerusalem. They're not saying that many people were there when Jesus entered, but we're talking thousands and thousands of people would have been there as Jesus entered. Picture the scene, if you will, in your mind. Jesus on this donkey, surrounded by thousands and thousands of people crying out their praise for him. And what might shock you, I don't know if you've ever thought of this before, but this very crowd, these individuals, these men and women who shouted out, praise him, are the same people who 6 days later cried out, crucify. Pilate brings out Jesus and Barabbas, and they say, Barabbas, crucify. Praise him, crucify. Now that's incredible, isn't it? That's insane. But that's not even scratching the surface. Because do you understand that Jesus, the same Jesus who rose Lazarus from the dead, Jesus, the same Jesus who knew the location of the donkey, Jesus, the same Jesus who turned water into wine, Jesus, the same Jesus who knew men and women inside and out, Jesus, as he walked through that crowd, knew it. He knew these people would betray him. And yet he didn't stop. He didn't turn to them. He kept going. He chose death for the very people who killed him. Now, you might be at the point where you're saying, okay, I'm sort of grasping that three layer of this story, and I kind of get it, but what exactly does this have to do with gentleness? What exactly does this have to do with my anger? How does any of this affect my life? Well, for us to understand that we have to do something really uncomfortable, we have to put down the binoculars and put up the mirror. Let's stop looking at this crowd and judging them, and let's put up the mirror and get real about our own lives and real about our own part to play in this scene. Let me ask you a question right now. What word would you use to describe Jesus walking through a crowd of people who he knew were going to kill him and doing nothing? Now, I know we've got Christians here, we've got people from Christian backgrounds, so we say the Sunday school right answers, oh, he's heroic. What a symbol of love. But no, forget that. Imagine you've never heard it before. What word would you use to describe him? I'll tell you what our society would use. They would use the word weak. What a coward. He must be afraid to confront that crowd. He's just putting up with their nonsense because he's fearful, he's gutless, he's spineless. And yet, my friends, I put it to you that this scene, and in fact, the lead up, the carry on, the follow on, the sequel to this scene is the greatest example of gentleness ever recorded, ever seen in human history. And it's an action that involves you and me in a very, very personal way. Now, I ask people at church to do this from time to time, so if you're a visitor, bear with me. In fact, I'm really doing this for you, but everyone else, bear with me. I want you to imagine right now, if I said to you, draw a picture of Jesus, what would you draw? If I said to you, get a blank piece of paper in your mind and draw Jesus, who would you draw? What would you draw? Can you do that for me right now? What would you draw? Well, I think we're probably torn in two camps. A lot of us might have Jesus with the blonde hair, the blue eyes, the sheep and the baby in the robe. And then the other half of us might have Jesus stripped of his clothes and nailed to a cross. The thing is, my friends, no matter how accurate those pictures may or may not be, even if they're 100% accurate, you're only getting half the story if that's your picture of Jesus. I'm going to make a statement, and it's a statement you might have heard a million times before, but I want you to try and actually grasp the depth of this statement. Jesus is God. He is not merely, he's not only the Son of God, he is God himself. He created the universe with his word. Think outward. The billions and billions of galaxies, the billions and billions of solar systems, the trillions and trillions of stars, the billions of creatures here on this lonely little planet. Jesus looks across all of them and says, mine. He made everything. And if this is a creator who has the power to create everything by his very word, do you not think he can destroy with even less? Do you not think he could completely rip apart a crowd of a few thousand with the blink of an eye? Jesus isn't just powerful. He is power. And yet here, riding in the midst of a crowd who a few days later will be crying out for his execution, a mob he could have destroyed in the blink of an eye, he doesn't. He rides through. Why? Because he loves them. Because he loves them. He loves them so much. He is riding to the center of the Jesus-hating movement to die, taking the punishment from God, so the very people who cried out for his crucifixion, the very people who put the nails in his hands and feet, could have eternal life. And my friends, that is the power of the cross. It is not that Jesus died for the innocent. There are no innocent. It's that he died for the guilty. For the guilty. And you see, that's where you and I come in. You see, our responsibility in this scene is the exact same as that who cried out, crucify. We might not have been there and said, crucify, but with our words and our actions and our thoughts, we do it every day. We are just as responsible for Jesus' death as the very man who hammered in the nail, because it is for our sin, your sin, that Jesus chose to go to the cross. Do you understand? It is for you and I. If you were the one person who ever lived, Jesus still would have chosen death. Why? Because He loves you. The crowd, they lay down their cloaks before Jesus as a symbol, an empty symbol of saying, you rule over us, we're under your authority, but Jesus laid down His life for you. So you want to know what gentleness looks like? It looks like a God who would look at sinners like us and say, I love you. I forgive you. I wonder if you've actually ever had that moment where you realize how deeply cherished and loved you are by God. I mean, imagine the person you love most on this planet. Now imagine sacrificing that person so your enemy could live. And you're not even really in the ballpark. You are the recipient of the greatest force this universe has ever seen, the love of God. You see, the cross is not a sign of weakness or defeat. It's the ultimate sign of victory. It's the ultimate sign of strength. And you see, once you and I understand that, it does not just change our Sunday mornings. It changes our Monday to Saturday. It changes every day of the week. You see, when you become a Christian, someone who loves Jesus, who's asked Jesus for His forgiveness, then you are filled with what the Bible calls the Holy Spirit, which is God as a Spirit. He comes inside you and He changes you from the inside out. But not only that, we as Christians get to look upon Jesus as a model for how to act. God says, oi, you want to know gentleness? Here, look at this bloke. Do that. And so when it comes to your and my anger and your and my frustrations and your and my gentleness, all we need to do is look at Jesus. You see, the opposite of our anger is not weakness, it's gentleness. And the essence of gentleness is strength. And so I put it to you right now that if you want to see less anger in your life, if you want to see more gentleness in your life, then you need to be stronger than you've ever been before. You need to proactively and reactively practice the forgiveness that God has shown you. And God shows us how to do that in a really practical way. There's two ways. Firstly, is by constantly remembering who you truly are and what Jesus has truly done for you. He saved you. Who are we to get angry at anyone else? God has held His hand back against from us. So if someone wrongs us, if a guy goes to touch my wife's hair, and there's nothing wrong with standing up for your wife or your loved ones. That wasn't sin. But being able to control your reactions. Being able to actually stop and go, I'm going to proactively forgive you before you even wrong me because I know you're that difficult person and this is going to be tough. Being able to have the power to have a fight and choosing no. Do you think you could practice this today? Oh, if you're anything like me, you can practice it directly after the service. Having the strength to control. And the second way that God makes this really easy for us to do this is by absolutely destroying and liberating us from being a prisoner to other people's opinions. You see, why do we get angry? Why do we get angry at other people? Because we value their opinions and they're not thinking of us the way we think they should, correct? They're doing something and we so value what they think of us that it angers us. If it's a complete stranger, it probably angers you less. You're like, oh, whatever. But we value people's opinions so much we're prisoners to them. But God says by sending His Son Jesus to the cross, be set free from that. There's only one opinion that matters, and that's mine. That's God's. And you know what God thinks of you. He loves you. And that frees you. Do I want you to like me? Sure. Do I want you to love me? Great. But if you don't, God still does. I'm no longer a prisoner to what you think of me. Think gentleness. Think Jesus. You see, my friends, we're left with two questions from this passage right now. These are the two final questions that we're left with. The first one, how will you today actively seek gentleness in your life? I want you to think right now of the person that you need to show gentleness to. Either someone who you know will be difficult before you even see them, and so you forgive them before you even get there. You're preparing yourself for it. Or the person who you know just adds salt to that wound every time. And so you have a quip or an insult or a put down. I'm so guilty of this. Imagine how your life will be transformed. My friends, this is the better life. A life not found in being a prisoner to opinion, but a life found in enjoying the love that God has for you, defined by God's love, not by your hate or anger. But the second question is even more important. And it's a question I've been praying about for you all week. What will you do with the punishment? What will you do with the gentleness shown to you by God? You see, we deserve punishment. We're like that crowd. But instead of punishment, we have love. We deserve anger, but instead of anger, we have forgiveness. And so I need to ask you today, my friends, have you accepted the gift of God? Have you ever actually come before Him and said, God, I'm sorry for what I've done. God, I want to follow you. I need to follow you. God, I love you. I understand what your Son has done for me. I know there's a whole bunch of people who are waiting for their lives to get sorted out before coming to Jesus. Oh, I'll wait till I'm more gentle, then I'll come to Jesus. Oh, I'll wait till I'm not doing X, Y, and Z, and then I'll become a Christian when I do that. Friends, forget about it. God isn't interested in the perfect picture of you because it ain't going to happen. He says to you, come as you are. And so, my friends, I'm now going to finish by praying a prayer of commitment and forgiveness to following God. And I'm going to ask you now, if you want to do that, this isn't Harry Potter, it's not magical words, but let's get real with God. So why don't you bow your heads as we pray to Him? Our Father in heaven, Lord, I'm sorry for the way that I've lived my own life. I'm sorry for what I've done. Father, I'm sorry that I've rejected you. But God, I realize that your Son Jesus went to the cross so that I could live. Lord, I realize that your Son died to take the punishment that I deserve. And Lord, I believe. Father, forgive me. Give me the strength to follow you, Lord. Lord, I ask that you would save me and forgive me, and that I could follow you as my Lord all of my days. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.